recording going. And to introduce a few of you, Sanctuary in the Woods was really the dream that we started with, that logo on the top of your slide right there. We are building a nonprofit retreat center out a little bit east of Austin, Texas in the US, which we hope to someday obviously welcome all of you to. But when the pandemic hit in March, and we're out there with bulldozers and engineers and, soil samples, suddenly we had to ask ourselves the question, should we be building something for people to come to when we're not sure if the world is going to be traveling much anymore? So we didn't stop that dream, but we added this one to it. So as you can see our brand expansion there, we have been Sanctuary at Sea. We've gone on 2 cruises with each other, had a great time. This year we were hoping to go Sanctuary on the road to go camping, saving for our 2021 Alaska cruise. All of those things up in the air now because the world is kind of up in the air. But when all that kind of went to heck, we jumped online. And on May 5th of this year, we birthed Sanctuary Online. And God bless you and thank you for those of you who were with us those first few times, because we were learning as we were figuring it out. And my goodness, none of us are under, we're too old to be good at this right off the bat. Let me just put it that way. But we've had a great time. And tonight is actually our 35th evening being online with Sanctuary. Thank you, Marsha. It has been just a tremendous blessing to us. We try to be educational, inspirational. We try and have some fun. We've done everything from Black Lives Matter, mental health, change, to bird watching. And our favorite thing seems to be our book club that is once a month at the end of the month. I do want to remind you that we just finished an incredible Advent series, all of which is again online. And we had different folks, families, do a candle lighting liturgy. These are our folks, Kim and her kids, Edie and her kids, Hannah and Rev Stedney and Jane. They did a little liturgy in the front part of the service for us. Ken did an amazing teaching each week about what the great living religions of the world, how they practiced each of the themes of love and joy and peace. And then we had a beautiful musical number to finish the evening. And so again, Ken sang the first week, Darcel sang, Jane and Camille sang, and Kim finished off. So it was a beautiful series. And we just want to always give appreciation for the folks. We try hard to bring folks on to speak, so you don't see a whole bunch of us, but you see amazing, amazing speakers like we have here tonight. Really quickly, our January lineup. I want to remind you that you will not see any of us next Tuesday night. We are taking a week off. So just, we are taking a week off. I said it 3 times in case you missed it. We love you, but we're taking a week off. And then we have a real exciting author interview. You know, we do that occasionally with Ellen Reed, a book called Someone to Watch Over You, a great way to start the year. That should say January 12th. We're working on a guest speaker, right, Barb? Still from the King Center for Martin Luther King Day. And then we also still working on that one. And our book club.
Yeah, still working on that one. That one's not set in stone yet.
All right, we're still working. We got time. Our book club, as you can see, folks, been doing this for a long time, is Sarah Waters' The Paying Guests. You actually still have a month to read this book, but Cheryl, will it take them that long? You're on mute, honey. You're still on mute, honey. It will take you that long.
Once you get through it, once you get going on it, it starts getting a hold of you. Wouldn't you say so, Kristen?
Yes. Find my mute button. It moves quickly.
It moves quickly once you get going.
Yeah, it's a big book, and we did that because we had 2 months to read it. You've got 4 whole weeks to read this. I tell you, my friends, this is one of the greatest nights of the week, and we've had people who don't even read the books. They just come to be a part of a great community on the last Tuesday of the month. So that's Tuesday, January 26th. We look forward to seeing many of you there. Okay, whew. Done with all the advertising. I am honored and really in awe of what we put together for you tonight. We have speakers from the African-American community, just brilliant, each in their own right. And Ken, I'm going to pass this over to you and let you do a tiny introduction of Kwanzaa, and then honestly to roll us through how our evening will run with speakers, candle lighting, and room for question and answer. I do want to let you folks know, if you have a question, each speaker, has a little, one of the principles of Kwanzaa. If you have a question and you'd like to put it in the chat box, especially if that question is for a particular speaker, okay? And then as we go through the night, we'll have time for Q&A. We may have time for Q&A at the end as well. And I promise you, just like going to Black church, we are not going to be done on time, right? So buckle in, enjoy yourselves, and just be here for our last Sanctuary Online of the year. All yours, Mr. Martin. And got to unmute you, Ken. Almost. Almost, Ken. Nope. Ken, you're on Barb's iPad. So an iPad user, Barb, can you talk him through this just to put his finger on the little
Tap on
button?
the screen.
I got it.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay,
It
my
popped
friend.
up on the screen for me. Okay, good. Thank you. So I want to, first of all, again, say, express our appreciation to all these wonderful people who've agreed to be with us this evening. And of course, this is a huge technological challenge to try to bring people together from 5 different states, to do this. And so, if we have a few technical problems in here, just bear with us. But we think we pretty much got this under control. So in December of 1966, the cultural scholar, Dr. Maula Karenga, was the person who invented, created, and initiated the first celebration of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is based around 7 principles. And at the very beginning, Dr. Karenga said, these principles represent a spiritual recognition of the goodness and oneness of life. And then a few years later, in an article, he wrote, these principles are posed as the minimum set of values that African Americans need to rescue and reconstruct their lives in their own image and interest, and to build and sustain their families, communities, and culture. So the festival of Kwanzaa takes place over a 7-day period, each year beginning on December the 26th. It can involve community and family gatherings of all kinds, concerts, feasts, exchange of gifts, especially for children. But the heart of Kwanzaa is remembering the 7 principles, one each day, and then lighting a candle on the Kwanzaa Kinara each day to recognize that particular principle. So tonight, 7 African-American leaders, again from 5 different states, have agreed to introduce us to all 7 of them one at a time. So I will introduce each one of them. And then after their presentation, we will pause to light the candle on the Kinara and then to see if we have any questions at that time. So some of our presenters tonight are going to be on video and some of them are going to be live. And the first principle will be presented by Reverend Dr. William Knight from San Antonio, Texas.
And Barb, I'm going to unmute you and you're going to go to video optimize. There we go. Great.
From its inception, Kwanzaa was designed to be a celebration of family, My relationship with Kwanzaa goes back to 1976. My sister was in college with the founder, Dr. Malana Karenga, and she thought it would be a good practice for her 5 children. I well recall so many years when my nieces and nephews proudly shared their understanding of the principles. The definition of family, however, was not limited to those represented and related by birth, but a definition that includes all the members of our community. It was and is meant to move beyond the limitation of the relatively few days of the traditional celebrations and to encompass a way of approaching life that is rooted and grounded in all that is good during the entire year. Kwanzaa rose out of a need to guide and enrich our lives by focusing on the critical issues facing our communities. Those needs were and are addressed through practicing universal principles. Traditionally, many cultures recognize the support and nurturing of the good earth that we all share. Celebrations of first fruits and harvest remind us of our reliance upon the earth and our dependence upon each other. The reality of our interconnection requires that we recognize our collective need for freedom, justice, and equality as individuals and as people of faith. The very foundation and the very heart of Kwanzaa lie in the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles. Their transformative power is neither magical nor mysterious. The power of these principles lies in our willingness to practice them as an ongoing custom and habit. When we make a conscious commitment to changing our world for the better, beginning with our own family, no matter how family is defined, we become instruments and agents for good. Now, this year has been challenging, with so many affected by a worldwide pandemic and a toxic political atmosphere throughout our nation. We have seen with frightening clarity just how divided and alienated from each other we have become. After a year that has seen racial tensions affecting cities and towns all over the country, the concept of unity seems more distant and unreachable than ever. Many of us are the living keepers of a history of oppression, marginalization, and separation. And so the idea of embracing unity with those who continue to espouse ideas rooted in racism can cause us to reject the notion entirely. And if that unity were to demand that we accept anything less than our full rights as humans, citizens, and children of God, then we could not and should not ever consider it. However, the truth is, unity is not about ignoring or refusing to accept the challenges we face both individually and collectively. Rather, the principle of Umoja can give us a sense of oneness and commonality. As matriarch of the family, my mother chose to begin each Kwanzaa circle by sharing her belief that unity is foundational to our human experience. Unity can serve as a basis for healing, for peace, for wholeness for our families, but also for our fellow human beings in our communities, and indeed, the world, which we ultimately all must share. This is captured in the African saying, I am because we are. God's good is for all to share equally. Everyone in our community is responsible for one another. And by working together, we can and will achieve dreams and goals that are far beyond our individual capabilities. As we honor and respect Black lives, we don't oppose, nor are we indifferent to other people's lives. But history has shown us that our collective strength is in accepting the importance of the Black community. It is our right to live in peace and serenity as we make choices for our lives that reflect who we are as the beloved children of God. Our sexuality, affectional preferences, gender identity and expression are all contributors to an integrated being that is the sum total of our mixed, marvelous, and magnificent parts. Unity is about our collective power, the power to work together for change, to find ways to be at peace with one another. Romans 12:18 encourages us, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. May the spirit of unity bring you and all those you embrace as family the blessings of the new year. Happy Kwanzaa.
Thank you, William. We light the Umoja candle for unity.
Thank you, Ken, for lighting that candle. That's beautiful. I just wonder if there are any questions for Dr. Knight regarding unity. And anybody, we're kind of comfortable here. You could just go ahead and you can click your space bar that will unmute you while you speak, and you can click it back again, release it, and it will go back to mute. Anybody, any questions for Dr. Knight? Okay, then I'm going to call you out. Jane Ann, I see that unity was your word for the year for 2020, and you say it unfolded very differently than you ever could have imagined. I believe that to be true for most of the intentions that we set for 2020, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was an amazing growth experience because it came out of, it was picked out of a hat, literally, with another group, and it was like the unity of spirit and the bond of peace was the verse from Ephesians, and but it just kept popping up, and then of course there was there was just so much around being unified and coming together that it just blew me away that it was my word. Anyway.
Yeah, fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Anybody at all? Otherwise, Ken, I'm going to go to you, and I've got Brendan here who was
Sure.
speaking to that he was going to go live, except after that great presentation, he's in tears, so he's going to go with this video as well. I'm with you, Brendan. We're all
Okay.
feeling it, my friend. Thank you, William, so
Yeah.
much. That was beautiful. Thank you.
The presentation of the second principle will be by Reverend Brendan Boone from Daytona Beach, Florida.
And first, I'm going to give you a close-up picture of Brendan there briefly. Oops. And of course, then I go, oh my goodness, backwards in time. I'm showing you a few things. And then Brendan, I'm going to.
In the days of the Middle Passage, chattel slavery, the Underground Railroad, Jim Crow, to the ongoing realities of institutional and systemic racism, to the countless beatings and killings of Black and brown bodies we're witnessing on almost a daily basis, Black and brown people have always been strong, enduring, and resilient. Our 4 centuries old lived history in the United States has and continues to teach us, even in the face of either losing our lives or witnessing the taking of another person's life without cause, provocation, or justification, we somehow always find a way to get back up again and proclaim even more boldly, Black lives matter, Black culture matters, and Black voices matter. It is here where the annual observance of Kwanzaa and remembering its core principles is paramount to our lives, our livelihood, and indeed our very existence. The second day of Kwanzaa focuses on the principle of Kujichagulia, or self-determination. This principle reminds us of our charge as individuals and as a people to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. It also requires us to define our common interests as a people, making decisions in the best interests of our families and our community. To put it in another way, this principle teaches us a basic life-giving truth, namely each of us have a purpose for being in this world, and it's our responsibility to actively seek out what that purpose is and pursue it with intentionality and with passion. While wrestling with his own call, the prophet Jeremiah was reminded he was born into the world with a purpose when God spoke to him saying, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." From this one verse, we see three basic spiritual lessons. Our lives are divinely created by God, and they matter to God, to us, and to the world. Secondly, the one who created us did so with a uniquely designed purpose for us. And lastly, we are equipped by God to ultimately fulfill God's purpose for our lives and community with one another. In the late 90s, while doing postgraduate work at American University in Washington, D.C., I was blessed to have as one of my advisors Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagan, scholar, singer, composer, civil rights activist, founding member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee's Freedom Singers in Albany, Georgia, and founder of the Grammy Award-winning all-female African-American a cappella group, Sweet Honey in the Rock. One afternoon in a meeting with her, I realized I was not only in the presence of my professor and advisor, I was actually in the presence of one of the great trailblazers of the civil rights movement, a woman of deep and abiding faith. Somewhere during our conversation, she leaned over, looked directly at me, and said, "Listen, never, ever apologize for who you are or what is your truth. There is work for you to do, and only you can do it. I believe in you. I know you can." In that moment, it was as if she looked into my very soul and spoke life, not just to me, but she spoke life for me. I left the conversation that afternoon feeling seen, affirmed, encouraged, and empowered to continue moving in the direction God was calling me to follow, determined to do my best each day to be Jesus with skin on wherever I went, knowing this is one of my primary purposes in life, all the while holding on to something Dr. Reagan has said many times throughout her life, and I quote, "Life's challenges are not supposed to paralyze you. They're supposed to help you discover who you are." This is what the principle of self-determination illuminates. In a speech given at Harvard University in 1982, renowned librarian, writer, feminist, womanist, civil rights activist, and self-described Black, lesbian, mother, warrior, and poet, Audre Lorde once said, "If I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive." The principle of Kujichagulia calls each of us to free ourselves from other people's perceptions and expectations of who they think we ought to be in order to be and become who we know we are called to be. Nelson Mandela once said, "When people are determined, they can overcome anything." I also want to add, when people are determined and driven by a clear purpose, they can become anything. Or as my beloved aunt, who is now a part of the great cloud of witnesses, would always say to me, "Whenever you put your mind to doing something, I have no doubt you will accomplish it." On the second day of Kwanzaa, I recommitted myself to this principle of self-determination and pray to remain faithful to embody this principle with every fiber of my being. May it be so. Ashe and amen.
Amen. Brendan. Oh, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Brendan. We light the candle of Kujichagulia for self-determination.
Thank you, Ken. Brendan, I feel like we should do this for each time, and maybe we're one behind, but just a massive applause. So if you can see us or hear us, or yeah, thank you. And same thing, Dr. Knight. Let's do it again, for Bill. There we go, William. There you go. Thank you so much. Just beautiful. Questions for Brendan? Questions for Brendan? Carolyn, was that a hand up that you had a question, or were you just giving him some praise there? Questions or thoughts for Brendan on this concept of self-determination?
Me?
Kristen, are you speaking?
Yvette is.
Yvette, go ahead, Yvette. Sorry. Jump in there, my friend.
No worries. You know, being in our other business, I would like to thank Brandon for that. Self-determination, we can do anything we put our minds to, and that's just bringing out for me, because I'm at this pivot point. Well, actually, I've taken the pivot. Yes, and so leaving one thing behind that was successful, which I thought was successful, and being determined is leading me to another phase in my life. And I'm determined to make that true. And so I appreciate the words. I appreciate that teaching, because it's helping me to, it just coming to realization that if I am determined to do whatever I can succeed and be successful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Yvette. Yes, knowing that to be true, right? You had an unexpected turn this year from COVID, and taking one business away, and then you creating, being determined to re-identify yourself and to create in a new way. Yeah, I've been able to walk alongside you, and you are a joy and an inspiration to watch. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Kristen, you had a comment for Brendan?
Yeah, it just brought to mind, you talking about not just making your own path, but making your own labels for it. It's something I haven't had to think about for myself, but I belong to a hiking group, and a young African-American girl who was going to hike the Appalachian Trail shared that there's a history of people you meet along the trail give you a nickname, and that's your trail name. And she was asking the group if it was okay if she told people she wanted to name herself. And she said that she was afraid that whatever the name was going to be Black something. And that wasn't the name she wanted, that she'd worked so hard for this accomplishment to hike the AT that she wanted to make sure she had control over her name, and that nobody gave her a name. And that you just talking there about self-determination to like make your own path, make your accomplishments, but then also make your own labels, just called that back to mind. It was very meaningful when she shared that post in my hiking group earlier this summer, and it's just given me a lot to think about.
Oh, thank you.
One of the most important lessons that I have ever learned is that you have no control over what people call you, but you have absolute control over what you are willing to call yourself.
Amen, William. Thank you. And how important, right?
Answer to. Excuse me.
No, who's that? Is that Marsha? Marsha,
Yeah.
Come on in, girl. This is a conversation. This is beautiful. Thank you. I wonder why y'all were being so quiet. Now we've uncorked you, so speak on.
I was just going to say, you also have control over what you answer to.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, how you respond.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And so important how much the voice is in our head, right? They are names. And Kristen, like you said, they are labels. And they are very often given to us from people who at the time had more power over us. And so we took them on, or maybe didn't even have much choice in not taking them on. And yet, as we grow and as we shift and as we learn these powerful, powerful principles of renaming and playing over those old tapes and not accepting some of those labels and even speaking out ritually and disposing of them and taking on something new. Back to Yvette, sometimes we do that by choice. Sometimes we pivot and respond. And maybe there's blessing in both those ways, right? doing it ourselves or receiving and responding. Wow. Oh, thank you so much. Ken, I'm going to send it back to you. We have a live presentation next, so I'm going to go ahead and I will share the screen for a brief moment.
Okay. All right. The third principle this evening is going to be presented by Reverend Tony Spears, who is in Athens, Georgia.
Thank you.
Oh, yours,
Thank
Tony.
you very much, Ken. I am honored to be a part of this program tonight. I have Ujima, and I'm honored to have been assigned this particular principle. Like so many of you, we live into this value in our daily lives. Community is so very, very important. And most of us are connected through MCC, Metropolitan Community Church. Community was so important that Troy Perry chose it as our middle name. I firmly believe our collective identity is our collective future. And we need to shape our future with our minds and our hands, sharing our hardships and our benefits together. Beyond that, we are collectively responsible for our brothers and our sisters, and everyone in between. Now, I didn't go as deep as my other two brothers. I went back to more what I see around me, especially since I live in Georgia. And I see Ujima played out right before my eyes. And we all know Stacey Abrams and her story. After she lost the gubernatorial election to Kemp in a contentious battle, she could have taken a back seat or given up. But instead, she organized a group called Fair Fight. And they reached out to the community, to voters of all ethnicities. And she is, of course, largely credited with turning the state of Georgia blue. She did it by reaching out to voters who did not feel their voices were being heard or that they were a welcome part of the community. And she said, we all as a collective community have the responsibility to have authentic conversations about why voting isn't just something you do because our ancestors fought for it. You do it to save your own life and for future generations. And as a ripple effect, our community activist groups have sprung up in this state, really. And I was just hired for one called SONG, Southerners on New Ground, and I'll be part of their promotions team on a part-time basis. And I know the power of speaking from a community standpoint as opposed to speaking from a personal standpoint. And some of you know I graduated from Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and I knew very well that it had a reputation for homophobia and racism before I attended because I knew people who graduated from there, included Reverend Karen Thompson. And she forewarned me, and she assured me that should they give me a hard time, she'd have my back. And Karen meant it, if you know. Well, some of that MCC spirit was upon me. I've been in MCC too long to be quiet. I've heard too many Ken Martin sermons to be quiet. And because I was outspoken, I was quickly volunteered to be a spokesperson for a group on campus called Queer Alliance. And in my second year, became their moderator. And if this campus was to evolve, and it was on the cusp of doing so, Ujima was that key principle that would be the driving force. So on behalf of QA, I earned a seat at the table with the powers that be, and I was made aware that change came slowly in the Presbyterian world and not to expect changes before my class graduated. But I made it a point to speak for the community and the future community on campus. And I am making a long story brief and saying that we managed to amend the Discrimination Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity. And we added queer curriculum and workshops related to LGBTQIA issues to the curriculum, including why the word queer has been used now. Also, Presbyterian Theological Seminary is now more inclusive than ever before. But those are my specific examples of Ujima. For most of us, we can experience this principle by voting, giving to others, encouraging others, and listening to their stories. It is not to say that you understand from a distance. For example, my experiences with police has been cordial. Only once has an officer pulled me over for driving while black, and she was polite about it. However, I will still advocate for my brothers and sisters whose experiences have not been very, very different from my own. It has not been my experience, but it could be. It could be the next generation's experience as well, and therefore we must work together on police reform. I mean, aren't you tired? Aren't you tired of news reports about police brutality on a black or brown person? But let me make one thing also clear, that I do support law enforcement, the officers that do good work. They are also a part of the community. For most of us, community began with our family. And as our social circles grew, so did our chosen communities. And those of us who are lucky enough to be a part of the sanctuary family, we don't have to look too far for Ujima. We have been blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. We light the Ujima candle for collective work and responsibility.
Thank you, Tony. I'm just going to open the floor again. Questions and comments to Tony or on the concept of Ujima, of collective work and responsibility. Great way to do it is just if you know, those of you who are muted, and I appreciate that for background, but if you just touch your space bar and hold it down, you'll actually unmute yourself, and then you can release it and you'll go back to mute. So very handy. Kristen, you've got a question here in the chat box. I'm gonna ask you to go direct to Tony on that.
Tony, thank you for that. I was just wondering your perspective, if you find that this concept of collective work and looking out for each other, if that comes naturally in the communities you've been a part of, or if it's something that you think still needs to be worked for.
I think it's something that still needs to be worked for. I know being raised in my family, we were not very politically active at all. You know, my mom didn't vote, my brother didn't vote, my dad voted occasionally. That's it. So we weren't out and joining different groups or marches, etc., like that. So I think being part of MCC was a major driving force, and having something to march for that I felt that I really needed to stand up for, because no one else is going to do it like I could do it. That was the driving force.
Thank you.
You know, I think what is natural is our tribal instinct. We naturally gravitate to our tribe, but what we need to grow into is expanding our concept of what community can be beyond our personal circles of influence, and expanding that to those who don't look like us, who don't think like us, who don't necessarily travel in the same circles that we do. And that's the whole idea of the collective responsibility that we all have to expand our vision of who we are as community.
Yes. When you said that, I just immediately came to mind with BLM and all the protests from the summer, and how people from all walks of life, all colors, young, old, all came together and, you know, had the same drive, the same concept in mind, to work together to change things.
You know, and thank you. And William, that's one of the things I think we're happiest with as we launched this unknown thing called Sanctuary Online. And as it, you know, we had a core group. Obviously, you've been there to Sanctuary, to the property. Many of you have, if you were close enough to get there, or had reason to fly and find us, but many hadn't. And yet this has allowed us an opportunity to expand our community here in ways that without COVID, we wouldn't have had that one drive or necessity or blessing. And now as new folks have found us over the last few months, now they're bringing their friends and they're bringing their family members. And as we see this community expand, one of the things we've been striving to do, St. Jim Matulski, many of you may know that name. He always said, if you didn't read a book a year that you completely disagreed with, you know, you just weren't working hard enough to move your own understandings beyond where they already are. So thank you for that challenge, you know, to make sure that as we live and grow, that we are ever present in challenging our own beliefs, challenging our own understandings, challenging who we're talking to, who we're listening to, you know, who we're being influenced by. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Velma, were you saying something there, my friend? I'm trying to read the Zoom squares. Can you unmute yourself, Velma, and share? Velma, unmute yourself, honey. Velma, my love. Hold your space bar down. Unmute. You're probably saying great things. We can't hear you, honey.
Cute.
Oh, my
Well,
goodness. There you are. Whoa, look at this.
Eureka! I am so sorry to take up your time.
No, it's
I
okay,
wanted to
honey.
go back to Tony and William, but a certain piece, a certain part of this for me has to do with safety. We have to feel safe in the situation that we're coming into in order to progress out and grow into. So there, we have to go into this weary and with a quandary, you know, so therein lies our, you know, sometimes lack of action, you know. So what are your thoughts on that, William?
Well, one of my teachers said to me a long time ago, safety is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a belief in something that isn't real. Because the moment that you believe that you are safe, what you have done is you have stopped growing, you've stopped expanding, you've stopped looking beyond yourself, stop looking to more possibilities. So I think our safety lies in our collective coming together. What I might not be strong enough to do individually, if we stand together, that not only gives me a sense of comfort, but it also gives me a sense of safety. It's harder to attack 3,000 people than it is to attack one person. Mm-hmm. And so I think our collective voices give us that safety. Our collective vision moving forward gives us that safety.
Well, and Velma and William, we spoke a couple times this year as we took on topics we knew we weren't, we knew we couldn't get it all right? I mean, one of the things, especially with the Black Lives Matter work, we all said, yep, we raised our hand and said, we have work to do. It's our work to do, you know, and yet so many folks, when we invited folks to this space, we tried to say, this should challenge you, right? Your learning curve should be a little more vertical than you've probably been used to. And yet we wanted to play with that concept of safety, meaning if you screw it up, you're not going to get hurt here. You're going to get gently, lovingly reminded, you know. And we had a person, I'll never forget this comment, that until they were here one night, they said, I didn't know why all lives matter was not an okay thing to say. You know, and in this space, someone said, it's not only not okay, you know, it is wrong. And yet there was enough gentleness, and we've tried to hold a space that's challenging while safe. So I'm curious around your concept on that, William, your thoughts on that.
Oh, no,
I
never
think
mind.
the bottom line is intentionality. If your intention is to, as you have stated so clearly, make sure that it is a space of safety, it's a space of caring, it's a space of compassion, it's a space where people are respected and where people's ideas are not condemned because they're different, but they're given an opportunity to revisit those ideas and perhaps rethink them and come up with a different conclusion. That, I think, creates a space where positive change can happen.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Velma, for that, the question and that challenge. Again, great conversation. Ken, I'm going to toss it back to you. And I'm excited to announce that we have finally reached today in our presentation, right? So Marsha, you're going to actually experience what today's principle is. Ken, back to you, my friend.
Yes, Reverend Marsha Warren from San Antonio is going to share the fourth principle with us.
And first, giving a screen share there for Marsha, and then I'm going to stop this, come out again, and come out to your video, Marsha.
Hello, I am the Reverend Marsha Warren, Senior Pastor of Exodus MCC in Abilene, Texas, USA. I would like to thank Reverend Elder Ken Martin and the whole sanctuary team for this opportunity to speak to you about cooperative economics and what that means to me. Ujima is very much related to Ujima. It is by our collective work we become responsible for the collective cooperative economics of the whole community. We are to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses which support the community. African American history is full of stories where this principle was lived out. Even during slavery, women and men lived out the dependence of the community, which was brought from Native Africa to the United States. The hope for a better and brighter future was the dream of many a slave. If it was not for themselves to be, it was for their children that they hoped. Mm-hmm. Many slaves worked together to ensure the survival of their forced slave communities and a larger community which deprived slaves the economic privilege of whites and justified the economic oppression of the slave. This lopsided form of society has continued until now. We still live in that lopsided community. And it is from this backdrop, I believe, the necessity for Ujima was birthed. After the Emancipation Proclamation, former Black slaves formed towns and communities in which they could prosper. Unfortunately, the prosperity of these communities caused some whites to feel intimidated. Towns like Greenwood, Oklahoma, Rosewood, Florida, and others were burned to the ground, and their inhabitants had to flee for their lives. However, some towns did survive. Nicodemus, Kansas, Langston City, Oklahoma, and one such town is Mound Bayou. Mound Bayou is located in Mississippi. It is still alive and well today. It is also where my family has its roots. This town has survived 133 years as an independent Black town founded by former slaves from the Davis Bend plantation. The plantation sold its land to the Montgomery family, and Isaiah Montgomery founded the town. This community was founded on the ideas of self-leadership, cooperative economics. It is just an example of Ujima. It has its own stores, school system, insurance companies, credit unions, and government, newspapers, and hospital. It is the oldest of all the Black towns in the United States. That is what the fourth principle means to me. I am part of a place that exists despite the oppression of the society surrounding it. It means I, as a Black, cisgender, lesbian female, am part of something much bigger than myself. I am here on this planet for something much more than my own personal goals. I live and breathe in a community where those who are pushed to the margins have been treated as second-class citizens. I am here to lift my voice for the dignity and respect of all people, for all people to have the opportunity to prosper, not only as individuals, but also as a community. I am here to lend my skills for that goal. For as I rise, my community rises. But that is not all. The intersectionality of life, this principle is lived out even in our own denomination. As a member of a denomination who seeks love, justice, and truth in the world, our churches illustrate that fourth principle. As it is stated in our history, we are a people of faith, endeavoring to build bridges that liberate and unite voices of sacred defiance. As our churches thrive, so does the denomination. Because of our congregational model, the denomination and the churches are economically tied to one another. The churches make it possible for the denomination to build our message on a national and international stage. It is through this cooperative relationship we both prosper. It is also through this relationship I have prospered as a single voice, encouraging my LGBTQ plus siblings not to despair, for they are loved by a divine spirit, which loves them no matter what. This divine spirit wishes the best for them, that there are others who are waiting for them to join them with them and become a member of this international family. This community is there to encourage and support you so that you may be all that God has ordained you to be. In closing, I hope you have heard what this fourth principle means to me. Ujima is not only on a micro level, but also on a macro level. It is not only about the individual, but the community in which that individual reacts. It is not only about the dollar and cents of life, but also the spiritual aspects as well. It is you and I, no matter where we are from, we are a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marsha. We light the Ujamaa candle for collective economics.
Thank you, Marsha. Questions there on cooperative economics? Carolyn, go ahead. You're unmuted. Go ahead and speak, my friend.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I am so grateful to hear all those towns named, but one that must be on that list is Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, yes.
I was privileged to be an interim there and learned about the burning of a home, like New York district, that was in Tulsa, out of jealousy and anger and racism. That's all it was. You tell people to be on the one side of the track and stay over there, and they build it up and make it nice, and then you want to come burn it down. What's up with that?
Right.
God help us to never repeat that.
Oh, there's so
Thank you, Marsha.
Yes,
Thank you.
so many, and we just we're not taught that in those history books.
Yeah.
About the many communities that were brought up by former slaves that prospered, that really, really, really made life better for its inhabitants. Carol, you muted again. Yeah.
Yeah, I muted again, but I'm from Florida, so I knew about Rosewood.
Yeah.
Heard those stories, but I didn't know about the race riots in 1921. I think was the year in Tulsa. I'm not sure of the years in the other towns, and I had not heard of the one in Mississippi. So thank you for schooling me, my sister. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's my family roots in Mound Bayou.
Fabulous. Thank you for bringing it. So it right here, Marsha, to a very personal side of that. Jordan, I know you've got a comment or two there, my friend. You want to unmute yourself and share?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. It's really important, and I think especially in this era of BLM, we're really learning this history, and we're all taught about the civil rights movement. But I mean, there was 100 years from the Emancipation Proclamation until then, where Black communities were vibrant and strong, and they were looking for those rights. Not just citizenship, but also economic equality. And to bring up those towns is very important. And Pastor Marsha, I appreciate you sharing that. And I hope more children and more Americans, frankly, will learn these histories in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
and now you can pass it on.
Barb, I know that you're prepping your next video, but a comment here about Rosewood. Nothing there now. Go ahead. Barb, you gotta unmute yourself, friend.
Right, I'm muted now too. Yes, when I was living in Gainesville, you drive right through where Rosewood used to be as you're driving to the beach at Cedar Key. And all it is now is a sign by the side of the road that says Rosewood, with absolutely no indication of the history that took place there.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. So if you haven't watched that film, there's a movie called Rosewood. If you haven't watched it, it's well worth renting it and watching it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. And thank you again, Marsha. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Ken, I'm going to pass to you. Barb, I'm going to have you cue your video up for our next piece.
Yes. Reverend Carolyn Mobley is in Saginaw, Michigan, and she's going to present the fifth principle for us.
And I'll stop sharing, Barb, and hand it over to you.
Happy Kwanzaa, everyone. I want to use a little children's song that I've doctored up a bit to help me express what Nia means to me. I am a promise, I am a possibility, I am a promise with a capital P. I am a great big bundle of potentiality. And I am learning to hear God's voice, and I'm trying to make the right choice. I am a promise to be everything God wants me to be. I have a purpose God has given to me. I have a purpose that the world needs to see. I have a lifelong commitment and responsibility. Yeah. Now I am striving to do my part so that my people can see God's heart. I have a purpose to be anything God wants me to be. Yes, it's my purpose to be part of God's community. Nia, purpose. I learned when I was a child, about 10 years old, that my main purpose in life was going to be serving God, loving God with all my heart, and serving God, and later serving God's people. After I got with Reverend Adrian, who is my lifelong partner, we started doing sharing Kwanzaa with our friends in our home. And we use this little book to create all kinds of little events and special activities. And I want to read to you from this book, Creating Kwanzaa Celebrations, the stated purpose, meaning of purpose, Nia. Nia, purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Having come from a little town in the South back in the days when everything was segregated, the only people I knew to be my people were my family, Black folk, and my church, of course, Black church. My school was even an all-Black school at first. Not that way today, but it was then. So my purpose early on was to be a part of my family and my broader community. In fact, I learned the truth of a saying that I didn't hear until much later. I am because we are. I knew that instinctively growing up. If it were not for my family, I would not be in the world, my parents for sure. And without my community, I would have no place or standing. But with my community, I have purpose. So as I continue to grow in my understanding of the meaning of purpose, it helped me to broaden my perception of who my people are. Since my people are more than just my family, biological family, and more than even my family of choice. My family, I said on a previous video when I was in Texas years ago, was Black people, gay people, and Christians. I've grown from that even to understand that my purpose includes loving and serving my own biological family, my extended community, and all God's people everywhere, whether they are Christians or not. Purpose for me has to do with my relationship with God, which strengthens my relationship with everybody else. If I can be all that God wants me to be, it will be in service to humanity. And so I help to build a strong community for the people I'm around, whether they be my personal family, the LGBTQI questioning and other alphabet soup family, or people in need everywhere around the world. In this season of COVID, all of our purpose is to lift up those who are hurting, help to bring healing and food and health to people who need it the most. I'm glad that I found my purpose really in service to God and others. If you find your purpose there as your base purpose, you will never go wrong. Thank you for hearing my thoughts and reflections on Nia. I hope it'll help you to deepen your purpose and sense of purpose. God bless you. Happy Kwanzaa.
Thank you, Carolyn. We light the Nia candle for purpose.
Thank you, Ken. And the chat is going wild, Carolyn. Let's see, Vilma or Kristen just says she just wants to come over and hug you, Carolyn. Kristen, I'm not sure where you are, but Carolyn's in Michigan, and I know up here it is cold in this part of God's country right now. So you're gonna have to wanna come up and give that hug.
Warm hug.
Vilma, you want to speak to your comment in the chat? No, I will then, because you're not even on mute and you're still not. Well, I will. I just love our community grows as we grow. That is going to be a quote I take away from tonight, my friend. Just the challenge of it, the truth of it, the heart of it. Man, our community grows as we grow. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Carolyn, when I saw your video this afternoon and Barb says, yeah, and she sang it. I'm like, well, of course she did, because who else would? You know, that was just beautiful, Carolyn. So thank you for lifting that up. Somehow, my friends, we have to put that video and these videos up on our website. I think we'll go ahead and do that this week, because these are just things, one, to listen to again, and to listen to without I know sometimes Zoom distorts a bit, and these are great videos, great teaching, and great to share. So we'll go ahead and load these up on our website this week as well. So man, thank you, Carolyn. And just feel a big hug from Kristen. Ken, back to you, my friend.
Yeah. Carly Diaz is here in Austin. Carly couldn't be with us this evening, but she's going to present the 6th principle for us.
Yep. And here's a picture of Carly, a seminary student here in Austin, right, Ken, right now?
Yes.
And I'm going to go ahead and share this.
I can see it. Hi, I'm Carly Hoffman Diaz. I'd like to present the 6th principle of Kwanzaa. The 6th principle of Kwanzaa is Kuumba, creativity, to always do as much as we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than what we inherited. Kuumba is based on sacred teachings of African societies with social and spiritual dimensions. The founder of Kwanzaa, Dr. Malena Karenga, further describes the principle Kuumba as 2 main concepts: creative restoration, an original act as imitation of the creator, and restorative act, reflective of the creator's constantly pushing back the currents of chaos and decay, and revitalizing and restoring the national, spiritual, and the cosmic energy of the world. It involves restoring African culture that is in disuse or in ruins in part of African or among African Americans in the United States. This is a spiritual and ethical obligation to constantly renew and restore the great works, the legacy of the ancestors, and the creative energy of the leaders of the nation. I think one example of this creative restoration is the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. It is a testament to Black struggle and achievement and contribution of expression. Another example, I think, is LeBron James. He is someone who is moving beyond his athletic skills and abilities by helping to create educational, vocational, and housing opportunities in his hometown of Akron, Ohio. Although one does not need to be a LeBron James or a Lonnie Bunch to uplift the community or to make a lasting impact. One can be someone like Miss Callie, a neighbor from my childhood who established after school and youth programs, activities, music enrichment programs before they were in vogue, which led to a beautiful community center named in her honor. I look at this as a mandate for all of us to do what we can, when we can, in our own little corner of the world, in our own communities. We are all blessed with gifts of the Holy Spirit, whether that is teaching, leadership, serving, pastoring, mercy, evangelism, whatever that may be. We can creatively use those gifts for the enrichment of our communities. I will recite the lyrics to a song which summarizes my thoughts on this principle. May the works I've done speak for me. May the works that I've done speak for me. When I'm resting in my grave, there's nothing more to be said. May the works that I've done speak for me.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Carly. We light the Kuumba candle for creativity.
And loud enough so Carly can hear us tonight. Oh man, fantastic. Any comments on creativity? Anything that Carly shared?
I just want to say that we have to let our works speak for us. I love that song. Thank you, Carly, for reminding me of it. Let the works I've done speak for me.
Yeah. And once we're in the grave, that's what's left, right? That is exactly what's left. Our work and our love.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Ken. Oh, hold on here. Velma's saying, when we toss a pebble in the lake, we don't know how or what that ripple effect will be. Absolutely. And yet, man, as Maya Angelou says, right? We toss and we toss and we toss because we know and we believe and we trust that others will be indeed touched by those ripples, those that are downstream from us. Yes. Yes. Thanks, Velma. Yes. And there you go, Barb, learning that it's much more than artistic creativity. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ken, I'm going to hand it back to you to introduce our last speaker for the
Yes.
I'm very excited.
Yes. Reverend Onetta Brooks is in Inglewood, California, and she is going to present the seventh and final principle for us tonight. Welcome, Onetta.
Welcome. Well, Abadi Gandhi, what is the news and how are you? Thank you again, Reverend Ken and Sanctuary Online for this opportunity to be with you this evening. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to deviate from my video where I look wonderful and fabulous to share again a part of my real-time moment. But my assignment this evening is to share the seventh principle of Kwanzaa, Imani, faith, which is shared on the last day of Kwanzaa celebration, which falls on January 1st. The principle reads as follows: Imani in Swahili, faith in English. To believe with all our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. As I reflect on the seventh principle that is attributed to Dr. Karenga, I think by now we have the history that was created or composed or put together in 1966 based on many of the African traditions in various parts of Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa. Again, created as an opportunity to offer African Americans in America a holiday different from the dominant culture of the time, again, to celebrate the contributions, the life, and the experience of Black persons that are in the US. I don't know about you, for me, other than knowing of Juneteenth in the United States, which very few people celebrated, but again, that being the liberation of the emancipation of enslaved persons in receiving the news on June 19th in 1865, there were very few holidays that many of us knew and talked about. And so in the aftermath of the Watts riot, which was August 11th, 1965, and the Watts riot itself lasted for 6 days, many of you may know that in the summer of 1965, hot, just things were going on in the Watts area. Oppression, hopelessness in the community, Jim Crow, you know, that minstrel show name of Jim Crow. Again, for some to believe that there was segregation in Los Angeles, there was somewhat of supremacy and abuse. We tend to think of Hollywood at all things were happy and pretty. It was not. And that there was redlining and a place by which Black folks live, and there would be a place by which others would live. But it was a summer of a very heated summer. And my understanding is around 103rd and Central Avenue, and on my video, I was actually in the park where the Watts riots was centered around. And there was a Black man who was driving, and a white California Highway Patrol person pulled him over on suspicion of being intoxicated. But of course, the elevation of that experience became out of hand, and there was an arrest that drew a crowd, and one thing led to another. And then by the end of the evening, all of 103rd Street's buildings were on fire, and there was looting. I was 13. Yes, I was 13 at once. And at the end of my street, there was a National Guard tank, and we were at home. We were not allowed to kind of go out. My mother didn't let us go, but we watched from go and loot, of course. And there was just watching the town again be on fire and wondering, what is the story? What has happened? And again, trying to understand again what was going on. I recall again, just that sense of faith, again, coming back to that time of the time when this was created 55 years ago. The context is, again, my own faith was based on so much of my Black Baptist church experience. You know, that Hebrews 11:1, that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Basically, if you can see it, it's not faith. You have to have that hope. And so my experience when I look at this 7th principle that talks about to believe with our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and the victory of the struggle. I go back to that tradition of having in my church experience deacons and ushers and singers, educators, people who had come from all walks of life. Our parents, yes, my mother and my aunts and whatever were doing the best they could to share, but we had educators in our church, and again, they would share their tools, preparing the students, the young adults for going forward for schools and education. Again, we have the civil rights movement. Of course, one of my members, her brother-in-law was John Lewis, and there was always, again, how to protest and how to be faithful to the cause, knowing that one day this would change. And again, that commitment in that spirit. So faith was something, again, that I live with, and I may not always have the words of it. And maybe the people I was around may not have the words for it, but it was in their spirit, how they shared, how they, again, gave to whatever they had, whether they were a janitor, an educator, how they gave to the community, and wanting the young children, us, to, again, to always have better and access than what they had. So in my tradition, even growing up, I was not aware of the Kwanzaa principles at the time, but they became meaningful to me actually at MCCLA. The Reverend Barbara Haynes and her partner, Evelyn Price, were persons who invited a number of us from church over to their home. It was a lived experience when she did a whole spread and went through the principles. What was so important to me, it was a lived experience. It was not just reciting words, it was a lived experience, and her authenticity was important to me. Even in college, it was not something that I understood, again, or practice. It was just it was an education experience, but it was something that I really didn't understand until, again, Barbara Haynes and her partner lived out. But what's important, again, about the principle as we evolve as people and as we share, We began to see that our people, our homes and our understanding is beyond just Los Angeles or beyond our home base. We extend to that mother country. And even though I recently did an ancestry DNS test and learned that about more than I knew when I came up, because that was not taught in my history, I really didn't know much of my ancestry because, again, there were so many, not necessarily secrets, but again, the history books or people didn't always share the story. But I have about 33% from Nigeria. I have 15% from Scotland and Wales, and of course, Texas and South Carolina. So the importance in the faith is that with time and with, again, support in all areas with time, is that we again find out who we are. And again, the many contributions of all people, whether they're educators or janitors, when we put it all together, they have something to teach us. Perhaps the most meaningful experience I learned, and I say this because I did have the opportunity to go to a residential college and again, become a math major and an engineer. But the most meaningful experience of a gift of faith in me was instilled upon my two aunts who were domestics. And the weekend before I went to college, they took me to a place in Pasadena where they were domestics. And we cleaned, as we would say, the white person's home. And we were going to do a three-way split where I could have money so I could go to college with. But at the end of the day, they were so proud that they gave me their portions of the money so that I could have money to take to college. I was very proud. But the most important thing was that my Aunt Elizabeth, who was a wonderful ironer, took my clothes, which were jeans and t-shirts. She ironed everything for me. And I took pride in that whatever it is that I had, I was able to go in and put on pressed t-shirts and jeans, which I don't have pressed t-shirts and jeans today. But again, that love that was shared to me. So what does that mean to me today? In the midst of all that is going on in 2020 with the pandemic, I think the lesson of faith is that we're ready now. And I think the others have shared upon it, that we are ready to go forward to tell the truth. If we are going to be a people of, as the people of faith, we have to be able to share the truth, to tell the stories not only of Tulsa, Greenwood, wherever. We have to come to tell the truth about how persons of color, enslaved persons, were treated, confess and share those stories, and didn't decide how we can go forward. Just telling part of the story will not suffice. And so again, I think the principle of faith is important today and will continue to be important as we as a people move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Onetta.
Again.
We light the Imani candle for faith. Joby, I want to just say thank you to each of these 7 remarkable people who accepted our invitation to be with us tonight. And I want to say that I have known all 7 of them for many years. Some of us go back almost 40 years. And without exception, I can say to those of you who don't know them that their lives mirror the principles that they shared with us tonight, without exception. And I just thank them so much for their willingness to share this. This has been an unforgettable experience for me. Thank you.
Absolutely, Ken. I would say if you don't have your mute off by now and aren't applauding, something is wrong. People, let's thank all amazing speakers, the time that they presented with us. And my goodness, yeah.
Thank you.
What a great night. And thank you for the time to present. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for bringing this. Did anybody learn anything tonight? Or
yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyone just feel love coming out of your computer screen tonight? Yeah. And wisdom. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And community. And hopefully challenge and safety and expansion. That is what we have tried to bring this year. And I'm if I even try and say goodbye tonight, I will promise I get a little misty. You know, when we began to take this journey in May, Ken, you were the one that said, what? And then when we said when, and we said right now, you said, really? And I'm like, that was wisdom. But we went, yes, we are going to go ahead and do this, create something. And we didn't create it. We couldn't have created it ourselves, or there'd be 4 or 5 of us on this screen. But over the year, Barb, if I put you on the spot, we have had so many folks. And I'm going to remind you, you have 4 gorgeous weeks to read your book and join Cheryl as she hosts our book club, The Paying Guests, on the last Tuesday of January. A fabulous book with a bit of risque and mystery and, might I say, murder in it. So knock yourself out there. I don't want to give it away, honey. January, we have a whole quarter laid out for you. January 5th, please don't come Tuesday. We've never said it before, but please don't come Tuesday. Or if you do, just chat amongst yourselves. An author interview, guest speaker in our book club. In February, we've got Ken. We're going to do a couple nights on the world's great religions, right? We're going to do a couple of that. And my friends, in March, I hate to say this out loud because it scares me, we are going to do a little tiny teasing taste of CLM online during Lent. And we're incredibly excited to attempt to bring that into an online space. And we just do. For those of you that have been with us for many, many Tuesdays, we say thank you. For those of you who may have just met us tonight, we say thank you. And a reminder that we become community by communicating. And so if you'd like to, if we have your name and your email address in the chat box, we will lovingly send you a nice little email with some photographs and sometimes a slide deck each week about what has happened. Again, linking you, if you missed that week, you can go right to our YouTube channel and see that. Also letting you know what's coming up the next week and into the future. So we love feedback. We love knowing what you like. We love knowing what you, how you think we can get better at what we're doing. We're open to that. We're analyzing our stats and we're analyzing your feedback and our love, but goodness. Anything else from the host, from Ken, from Barb, from Cheryl, Tom, you're on here. So many of you, we just appreciate your love this year. We bless you as you carefully, don't screw this up, folks, on Thursday night. All of us gently let 2020 exit. Let it just go. Bless it on the way if you can, but don't break anything. Wherever it is, midnight, where you live, do not screw this up, okay? And then look to 2021 with love, with expectation, with abundance, with joy, with laughter, with good decisions, and with good health. Yes?
Thank you, Sanctuary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Love you all.
Good night, everybody.
Night, night. So good to
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Come back. Come back if you loved us. Come back if you liked us. Come back.
Hang on a second.
Shadana, I saw you there. John, welcome. Tony, thanks. That was beautiful.
Thank
Carolyn,
awesome. Just awesome. Thank you for putting this together.
Awesome teaching.
Oh my goodness. Ours was the easy part, Carolyn.
Really great.
Yes.
Really great.
Thanks for bringing it home, Onetta. And Velma, good to see your face, man. I miss you.
Yes.
Miss you, lover. Miss your doggies.
Thank you, Onetta.
Thank you.
Good to
Thank
see
everybody.
you.
Good to see you.
We'll
All
get
right.
Videos.
I can go now?
You can go now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We're all gonna go.
But he's already gone. Love you.
Yeah. Bless you. Bye-bye.
Love you, Darce. Bye,
Love
Tom.
this has been awesome.
Happy New Year, y'all.
Happy New Year. Be safe out there.